Our speaker will present a comprehensive study on Europe's energy demand and the role of battery recycling, circular economy initiatives, and material efficiency in shaping the future. Please welcome Professor Simon Lux, Managing Director at Fraunhofer Research Institution for Battery Cell Production, FFB. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you everybody for being here. I know I'm the last guy keeping you from lunch, so we'll try to make it short. But let's start with a little questionnaire. Since you're all sitting here comfortably, please raise your hand if you own an electric vehicle. Okay, that's quite good. Who owns a battery storage system at his house or home? Also quite good. I think in 2030 we will see much more arms going up. We're going into a battery world where we need Europe to electrify. And in order to Europe electrify, we need a lot of electric vehicles on the road, we need a lot of buses on the road, we need more energy storage. And with that, we will have a lot of less dependency of materials, less dependency on energy imports, less dependency on other countries in the world for our European economy. And last but not least, we will have some value generation in Europe, value generation for the people living here, all with the environmental effects of an electrified transportation system and things. So we need to build up this battery industry in Europe. And you know, scientists always try to discuss, but some things are general. We have round about 300 million people in Europe. We have round about 140 million cars. We have a grid, so we need around 1.3 terawatt hours of batteries per year in Europe. These batteries need to be produced, and we have quite some challenges with that. What are the challenges? We are very dependent on Chinese materials, very dependent on Asian providers. We have a lack of innovations. All the factories, and I'm sure some of you heard the news yesterday, are using Chinese equipment for manufacturing, and we have a lack of people who are interested in working in our industry. And why is that? At the moment it's very easy. At the moment you have a classical linear economy. There is nothing like the democracy of raw materials. You will find raw materials everywhere in the world. You take these raw materials, bring them to a refinery, bring them to the next chemical factory, make your materials, and then you can start to produce battery cells. And then you start to use them. So we see a barrier. So what me as scientist is bothering is that if I look into what is the value share of Europe, of our home, of our economy in this game, it's relatively low. If you look at this graph and you see the mining is all over the world. You can find it in New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean, in Mozambique, in Africa, in Chile, in North America, also in Finland, but it's distributed. If we go to refining, purifying, cleaning the materials, or even synthesizing materials for battery materials, the red bar here becomes bigger and bigger. The red bar is the Chinese-controlled supply chain. This includes factories which are in China and which are dominated by Chinese companies. So for example, if a factory is in South Korea but predominantly owned by a Chinese investor, this would be also red on this graph. This is something we have to change because especially for stationary storage applications, you need a technology called lithium iron phosphate, and there 98.5% of the production capacity is in China. So if you want to build stationary storage systems anywhere in the world, North America, Europe, or anywhere, you need to import the material. You have basically no chance. What is our chance? And that brings me to why I'm here on this stage is the chance really for Europe is that we switch from a linear model to a circular model. That means we need a transition from primary raw materials to secondary raw materials. There we have a problem. Probably 10-15% of you raised the hand owning an EV, owning a stationary storage system. That's not enough at the moment. So we are seeing that this recycling industry is still growing, but it will take us roughly till 2050 or 2055 to have enough material in the circular economy for batteries and for stationary energy storage systems. And the other thing is, we have to build factories. If you remember the graph I showed before, you see the value chain from left to right, from the mine, from the raw material to the car factory. At the moment, we have a lot of those in Asia, in China, in other parts of the world. And the circular economy, in my eyes, is only as good as long as it is local. It makes no use to send old cars around the world, to dismantle them, to put them into refineries and then bring them back to Europe. So if we transition to more blue bars to Europe, that means we need to have this material in Europe, not in mines, but we need to have this material in the big circle of the circular economy, ready to be used, ready to be recycled. And if we take a conservative scenario for this mass, it's quite astonishing. We need 20 megatons of material just to electrify the electric vehicles and the stationary energy storage in Europe. So this is a conservative scenario. You see such a random number as 14 terawatt hours of battery cells up there. 14 terawatt hours is only the transportation sector. Transport, trucks, buses, cars, and you need another 6 terawatt hours of other devices like stationary storage, grid stabilization, maritime, and so on. And this includes a lot of critical materials. As the speaker from Apple pointed out, these materials are not available everywhere. So we need to transition from a mine somewhere in the world, from a Chinese big factory, from a gray cell we are at the moment importing and putting in our systems, into recycling, digitalized factories in Europe, into greener cells which have less carbon footprint, need less energy in the production, and need less material for the same purpose. This transition is phased, so we cannot use this transition within a month, within a year. We need decades. And this is unfortunately sometimes outside of our political spectra. They think in elections, we as scientists think in decades. And now it's getting a little bit complicated, but please still try to follow me. If you see this graph, you see basically in red where is the material coming from. You see in blue the production, and the gray area says where it's happening. So at the moment, a lot of the materials are coming from the world to Europe, from the rest of the world. But these materials, when they are coming to Europe, we want to keep them. We are basically cheap. We want our circular economy inside Europe. We don't want to ship waste, dirt, used batteries back to anywhere and get a good material back. So if we transition from the imported materials to a circular economy in Europe till 2050, we need to build up the infrastructure, the factories, but we also need to fulfill the energy demand. If you look here at the axis, that's terawatt hours per year. If you calculate this to solar cells or gas power plants, just to provide enough energy to produce the battery cells needed in Europe and to feed all the recycling factories we are building, we need to cover the whole area of Berlin in photovoltaics, or we need to build 79 new gas power plants. And this within roughly 20 years. That's quite a challenge. I think we need to work on that. On the other hand, we will reduce some energy consumption in other fields of the industry, but by localizing the material raffination and synthesis and the production of battery cells, we will use much more energy locally in Europe and stop importing the emissions from other countries of the world. And why I'm now here, that's exactly what we are tackling in Münster. the picture of this nice green factory was the factory I'm running. So we are trying to evaluate there these new technologies about reducing the energy demand, bringing a digitalized and sustainable production online that we then scale in Europe and provide technology base for less energy consumption in Europe. If we do this, we want to solve, at least from the Fraunhofer side, one piece of the puzzle. And the piece of the puzzle is all the startups and technologies and companies have new technologies. We will use our factory to evaluate these technologies, to bring them to life. We are also doing this in a digital way, having a virtual factory and a digital twin where all companies are open and welcome to contribute to bringing an ecosystem into this virtual battery plant. And last but not least, we need the young experts and the young people to really work on these topics, to bring them out of Fraunhofer into the industry, to really transform and start this transition towards electrifying Europe. So in a nutshell, the circular economy is not only good for the environment, it's also good for our economy. It's good that we reduce our dependency on material imports, but it also helps us to set up a European value chain and create prosperity in Europe. Unfortunately, we still need new technologies and new processes to really lower the energy consumption of battery cell production, and that is where we in Münster and as Fraunhofer Society as a whole, with the colleagues in Oberhausen, Umsicht and a lot of other institutes, are trying to bring new technologies to life. With that, I hope I get you a good outlook to how we can not only do something good for the environment, but also good for our society, combining sustainability and prosperity in one and bringing a battery value chain in Europe to life. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Simon. And have a great time here at the Circular Valley Convention. Thank you.